Welcome back to the Budget Gamer channel, where we bring you critical and in-depth reviews of just about every indie game we can get our hands on, and today we're going to be taking a look at Demon's Tier for the Nintendo Switch. And this one did just get released, so if this is your first time hearing about it, well, I'm thankful that I got to be your first dose of the game. Demon's Tier opens up with a tale as old as time. King rules kingdom, king comes to the end of reign, king makes seedy pact with shady dude for limitless power. But as they say, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and in keeping with that little parable, our king turns into some demonic ruler who plagues the land from his new residence at the bottom of a multi-tiered dungeon. And as luck would have it, the general townsfolk really don't like the idea of a bottomless pit ruled by a demon in the middle of their town, so it's gonna be up to a motley crew of wizards and warriors to quest down as deep as they can go into this dungeonous pit and end his demonic reign of terror. And while this is definitely a roguelike game, it's not a pure roguelike, it's actually a roguelike adventure. And that does come with a few really cool elements that have been worked into the gameplay pretty darn well. One of those is that playing through the dungeon, you don't actually have to die in order to start over your progress and continue. Matter of fact, if you do die, that's kind of a negative. Because the deeper you go into this dungeon, every level you make it through, every enemy you slay, every chest you open is pretty much going to be adding to a multiplier for D points or dungeon points. And it's really the collecting and the stockpiling of these D points that's going to allow you to increase your character's skills, get new characters, buy items, and forge new and more powerful weaponry that'll allow you to start off every dungeon run just a little bit stronger. But if you do die, thankfully you get one more chance at redeeming all the D points that you had gained by finding your own grave and, for some reason, blowing it up. But again, you only get one chance, so if you find your grave and destroy it on your next pass, you'll reclaim all of those D points. But if you die before you find your most recent grave, everything that you had collected in that tombstone is pretty much gone. As you might expect from a roguelike game, pretty much every level you make it down into the dungeon, you're going to have an opportunity to spend whatever gold or items that you've collected in order to improve your character for the duration of that particular dungeon run. You may be able to improve your strength, your defense, add HP, increase your movement speed, or even the range of your weapon's attack. And as the combat system in this particular dungeon crawler is modeled after a bit of a twin-stick shooter, increasing the range of your attack is pretty vital depending on which character you choose to play with. And on the note of choosing your playable character, that does bring us back out of the dungeon to look at how to power up between dungeon runs. As I've already mentioned, your D points are pretty much going to be the currency to buy items, one of those items being an escape rope, the other being a full restore potion, and the final item, at least for the beginning of the game, being a silver key. This key, if you do choose to take it with you, can allow you to free a prisoner you may find in certain levels of the dungeon that'll not only grant you a D point bonus, but also play alongside you, adding to your DPS or damage per second. The other ways to spend your D points back in the village, though, are in investing in new playable characters. You'll start off as a knight who's pretty well rounded, but you'll also have the options of an archer with more range, a mage with some higher DPS, a berserker that's pretty much an all-out glass cannon, and a really squishy little healer. Besides their base stats though, every character has their own special ability, and depending on your playstyle, you might find some to be much more advantageous than the others. Every few levels down in the dungeon though, you will have a boss encounter, and after defeating the boss, you'll get a gigantic chest as well as some gold, and you may randomly encounter a blueprint for a brand new weapon for whichever character you're currently playing as. And this brings us to the third way to invest your D points. Unlocking new weapons can unlock huge amounts of different buffs and attributes to add to your character, and dumping some D points into the blacksmith can permanently unlock that weapon. And being that the boss encounter blueprints are randomized, you might get lucky and have your first pass be the most powerful unlockable weapon. But it might cost you 100,000 D points, so buckle in for some grinding. Moving away from the general mechanics of this adventure-style dungeon crawler, the visuals of the game they're pretty much awesome. The colors, the pixel art, the characters, they're all really well done, and even the dungeon itself, every couple of levels, completely changes its environmental style. Bosses and new enemies and new environments are all completely unique, and even new and unlockable weapons have their own visuals. The audio package for the game as well is really suited to this retro-style game, and while I did find the music in one particular level just a little bit annoying because I spent a good amount of time in that level, for the most part, the musical score as well as the sound effects of the game were on point. So just stepping away from the game and looking at my experience with Demon's Tier just as a whole package, I'd have to say overall, it's probably one of the most entertaining games I've played in a hot minute. And to be painfully honest, I'm not the biggest fan of roguelikes. But the level of challenge, though challenging, was really fair. And the way that the game is laid out, that every few levels or so you get a cutscene to let you know just a little bit more of this perilous story. It kept a really unique, almost RPG level of excitement, and really made you feel like you were building this campaign as you went, not just trying to press and grind further with every step. That being said though, there are a few things that I really wish I had known starting off. First off, like I mentioned before, if you die in a dungeon, you're pretty much sacrificing your D points unless you can get back to your grave and reclaim them. But while the pause button or the little plus button on your Joy-Con will bring up the overall menu and show you your map, it doesn't bring up the items menu. That's actually mapped to your X button. And I'll admit, stupid me, it took me a couple playthroughs and quite a few deaths to figure that out. But that's how you're going to be able to use your escape rope to get out of the dungeon, or your potions to heal, or anything else. Other than that, it actually took me to the 15th floor of the first tier to figure out you can defend. I knew you could defend. I think I read about it in a game menu, because it said something like, when attacks are unavoidable, you need to defend. And maybe it told me how to do that, but it took me that long in the game to figure out that you just have to press the right bumper. It's instantaneous and there's a cooldown, but it is absolutely fundamental to gameplay when you make to certain stages. And if you're not quite sold on the game just yet, there are new unlockable characters for the further you make into the game. There's new unlockable items for the item shop, and though you may spend hours just pushing through that first tier, well, there's 2 more to go after that. So if you are a fan of roguelike games in general, and even if you're not and you're more of an adventure gamer, or you find yourself drawn to some dungeon crawlers, there's probably enough offered in Demon Tier with the replayability, the storyline, the character development to keep a pretty broad audience really deeply invested. And while I know it's not exactly a budget indie game, it is still an indie game, and it's definitely one that people should probably be made aware of. But that does about bring us to the end of the review of Demon's Tier, now on the Nintendo Switch. So if you enjoyed the review, or especially if you found it helpful, feel free to throw us a like or a comment to show your support. And don't forget to click that little bell icon and enable YouTube notifications when you subscribe to stay updated with the latest content. There are literally thousands of indie games out there, and new and unique ones are coming out every single day. But we do get to cover a couple different indie games every single week, so chances are, if it's on the eShop, if it just went on sale, you're probably going to find out about it right here. But if you like what we do and you love the fact that we're dedicated to giving some really underrepresented titles and underrepresented developers some much needed media coverage, I'd be happy to welcome your support as one of our new Patreons. They not only help me actually purchase the games, but really help me develop the content. And if you've been around the channel for a minute, all this new format, the Patreons actually helped me pick it out and decide on what to do. So thanks guys, literally could not have done it without you. But anyway, this has been The Budget Gamer, so as always, thanks for watching.